peace out.
We're walking back to the set, and we've got Sandra. She's putting her IFB in. Steady Teddy on the camera. Be careful. There's some cords down there. Guys, watch it. We're walking Britt Hume and Meghan McCain and Lisa Booth back up to the set here, and we're going to do some outnumbered overtime. Britt, you with us?
Yeah.
All right, let's go, buddy.
Where we go?
We're on the air.
Sit on the bench
outnumbered overtime.
We can sit on the bench. Do we want to sit on the bench?
Okay, sure.
Come on, let's sit on the bench.
How about the benches?
So, Britt, we do a few minutes OT. Just talk about.
Actually, it's okay.
It's a little bit of a debrief. Does it matter?
No, I don't think it matters. Let's just sit down. Woo!
It's hot.
Is it hot?
Told you it'd be hot.
Okay, no, it's okay.
Tuck in your dress. Oh, you look so comfortable.
Yeah, I'm not very comfortable at all. My butt is burning.
I have to tell you something, Britt, since we're now on overtime. The whole suit with the sneakers thing is going viral right now. Twitter is talking about
that's working for you.
Well, I see that brace on there.
Oh, you have a boo-boo.
No,
as we say in my household.
I have a very severe arthritis and an old skiing injury. And it's gotten to the point now where walking can be very difficult.
Okay, well, I'm glad we're seated.
They're talking about replacing the ankle.
Oh, no.
Which is not, it's not like
different
hips and
than
knees.
a knee.
Well, hips and knees are snapping in like light bulbs now. Ankles are a whole other deal.
Wow.
The rehab is supposed to be 9 months.
Oh, good Lord.
I don't have enough 9-month periods left in my life to want to do that.
Stop that. So we might have to bring Outnumbered to your house.
There you go. That'd be good.
Yeah, right? Put your feet
I
up.
could hobble out.
So, Britt, can I ask you a question? How are you, is enjoying the right word? How are you enjoying this RNC versus past?
Well, I like them all. I've always thought political conventions were fun.
Yeah.
And they're not nearly as momentous as they used to be when major party issues were being discussed and platform fights would occur and there'd be fights over what delegation was going to be seated and all the rest of that. That was pretty dramatic. 1968, there was sort of an apogee of that with reporters being roughed up on the floor, and those were the days. But even the fact that there's sort of 4-day shows intended to frame a nominee in as nice a light as possible, even that's interesting. But it sort of turns us as reporters, political reporters, into theater critics, because that's basically what we're seeing. But they're still fun. The only thing that, as I've gotten older, the thing that's harder for me about them is getting around. It's the inconvenience of security, which is way greater than it ever used to be. Used to be, your workspace would be right there, and you'd...
Gosh, well, then we're even more grateful that you walked all the way out to our outdoor
walking you all over the place, and you're just,
I'll have to crawl. I'll crawl back to the workspace now.
Let me ask you just about the atmosphere outside the convention. Sandra and I had an event to get to last night, and we decided to walk because my girl walks everywhere. And so I'm trailing behind her, and we're going around all the protesters, which were peaceful, but there were a lot of people. It's just it's an interesting dynamic to add. Is this the norm?
Yeah, there usually are a lot of people. Political conventions attract a lot of people. It's where it is the center of the political universe that week in that town. And people who consider themselves part of that or want to be show up. And they show up to protest, they show up to lobby, they show up for all kinds of reasons. And they show up to go to parties. It's been this way for the longest time.
Lisa,
Major national institutions.
You joined us for the first time on Outnumbered on TV, and now we're on OT, baby, no rules. So I want to ask you a couple of questions.
Oh, no.
Just so our viewers can kind of get to know you a little bit. What would you say is kind of that point in the convention that you were really, really waiting for? Has it come and gone, or has it yet to come?
Well, actually, I think that Don Jr.'s speech and Tiffany Trump, like you were saying earlier, is so important because, as I mentioned before, what the Hillary Clinton campaign is trying to do is make this an indictment of Donald Trump and an indictment of his character. And I think what Don Jr. and Tiffany Trump did was speak to his character and give some of these anecdotal stories. So I'm looking forward to seeing Eric Trump tonight and Ivanka Trump tomorrow, because I think we'll see a continuation of that.
Yeah, we had the breaking news during our hour on Outnumbered TV version about the Trump campaign released a statement.
Taking responsibility for it,
yeah. Yeah. And so, Megan, my question for you is that enough?
Barely hanging onto this bench.
Oh no! Well, let's
it's barely on this bench.
Okay, scoot down.
I'm sorry.
So no,
we're literally in the hot seat.
We need an entire butt on the bench. No, but I'm just wondering. Sometimes when you don't fire people or reposition them, they can hurt you again. Not that this woman would hopefully ever do that again, but what does that say about this campaign?
It's off brand for him too. I mean, if
it's
you know
off brand, what does that mean?
You're fired. That's what Donald Trump debatably best for them being a billionaire. And I think, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, especially in politics and especially on campaigns. This woman messed up very badly, who wrote this speech for for Melania. And like I said before, she was introduced to us for the very first time as our possible first lady, and they've done his family a disservice and by recourse the Republican Party a disservice, and I think she should be fired or at least taken off the campaign and doing some more proper to her.
I don't think that the average American and voter sitting at home that haven't worked in politics and haven't worked on a campaign, who understands sort of the operational nuts and bolts, I don't think they're really going to care, because I thought Melania Trump actually did a good job delivering the speech, and I think that's ultimately going to be the takeaway for people sitting at home. Britt.
I agree. I think that she's a gracious and impressive woman, and that showed. And I think there was a sweetness about her, and her remarks about her husband that were important as well. The problem with something like this is that impression is made. It doesn't go away entirely, but it's stained when the news coverage and the discussion for the next couple of days, which may be all that ever reached the people who didn't see her, is that parts of the speech were lifted from somebody else's, from the First Lady's own words of all things. I mean, that blunts the impression and turns up what should have been a big positive into a negative. So, it doesn't eliminate the impression she made,
Do you think
but
it
hurts
changes the trajectory of the campaign?
Do
you think it changes the trajectory of the campaign?
Well, very little changes that.
I just wonder,
in other words, it was a small step forward that turned out to be maybe only a half step forward.
But Donald Trump will be speaking himself on Thursday night. And don't you think that can be a powerful enough message and speech that we may all just forget about this?
That could be scorched earth for him if he does a good job, and then we'll probably entirely move on from that.
There is an overall impression that is created of a candidate by everything that happens at a convention, particularly involving members of his family or other people who know him well. That can be everything feeds into that with his speech by far being the most important element of it.
Yes.
But one of the elements of it has been tarnished. That's what's happening.
Yeah. One thing, too, as you were talking, and Sandra, you and I have talked about this before, what stories really get blown up and which ones don't. So if all people saw were the mistake and they don't see the responsibility taking in the statement, which we know some of the mainstream media will continue to run the loop of Michelle Obama and Melania Trump together and how much their words are together, and not so much talk about the statement that just came out with the speech.
This state will make me.
You think this will?
It'll be the top of the story.
Because wouldn't that just kind of wipe it away then?
No.
No?
No.
So what could the campaign have done outside of waiting until Thursday night?
They could have had an organization that had within it the people necessary to do a professional job, recognizing the pitiless glare spotlight that speech and the person making it would be under, and that's true of everyone else. Remember, they asked Chris Christie about his speech. He said he wrote it himself. Now she said she wrote.
He's a prosecutor.
I understand that. What I'm saying though is he took care. Now he was equipped to. Look, it's unfair to ask her to write the speech.
Yeah.
But it's not unreasonable for her to expect that whoever's helping her with it would vet it properly.
Right.
And that's amateurism. And the Trump campaign has had too much of that and needs to grow enough so that it can handle these tasks.
That was the word you used, Sandra.
But they were also given original speeches from very well-respected seasoned speechwriters that were given to her. They used none of it. So I don't know what the disconnect, I don't know what the first draft looked like. I don't know why she didn't like it. But this is a very non-traditional campaign, as we've talked about at length. But there's some things, especially when you're talking about the national convention, where having some Washington insiders who have done this before is actually helpful.
Well, and look, even if whoever drafted the speech. It's what happens between the draft and the delivery that matters, so that you screen out any problems. That's a pain in the neck, but it's necessary.
And I think what the campaign should have done is, instead of doubling down, they should have right away admitted the mistake.
Because he said his statement the first day.
Well, because what would have happened if they had done that? Then you would literally have maybe an hour or 2 hour story, and this would all be gone away, and the media would move on to something else.
Interesting.
And then we wouldn't be talking about this today. And the problem is they doubled down, and the biggest problem is ultimately, since they admitted it and came out with that statement today, they should have just done this on Monday night after the speech was given, and we would be moving on to something else, and it would be over.
All right, so we're going to move on because it's warm in the sun, and our butts are on fire from the hot bench.
All right. Thank you for joining us, and we'll be back at 4 o'clock.
Thank you, Britt.
Thank you for having me.